If you've ever been in an argument with your wife that felt like you were in the Daytona 500, just hours of endless circles, you probably tried to use logic to fix it. You laid out the facts, you explained your side, and you expected her to meet you halfway. But instead, she got more emotional and upset at you, the conversation blew up into another big fight, and you were left thinking, what just happened? Everything I said made sense and was the truth. In this video, I'm going to break down why logic almost always backfires when you're trying to stop fighting in your relationship and what to do instead so you keep the peace, your sanity, and help strengthen your leadership in the marriage to open up your wife to a place of happy, healthy reconnection. Before we jump in, if you've just been fighting constantly and your marriage is at a boiling point of unbearable stress and close to the brink of divorce being a serious possibility, I have a free masterclass that will walk you through the exact step-by-step framework that I teach those who are in my relationship rebuild program. Click the link in the description below. I highly encourage you to watch that for free after this video. For now, let's get you on the right track faster to make your relationship better. Men are generally raised, and it's our natural mentality to solve problems by reasoning through them. That's how we handle healthy conflict with other men. We debate, we exchange facts, we find the best solution, and for the most part, we generally just move on. But emotional conflict with a woman doesn't follow that same system. When you try to win an argument with your wife through logic, what she hears at a subconscious level is, he's trying to win or make me look dumb, not connect with me. And when a woman feels that, she emotionally withdraws. She's not listening to your logic anymore. She's just defending her own sense of safety. In your eyes, you're thinking, hey, I'm just explaining my side. But she's in her eyes, and she feels like he doesn't get how I feel. That gap is the invisible wall that often becomes a carbon monoxide leak in a marriage. It just slowly and unsuspectingly kills emotional safety. And once that safety disappears, logic becomes noise, and this is where men run into the biggest marriage challenges. This was one of my biggest struggles for so long with women in my romantic relationships because I'm a very logical and rational guy. Back then, I had no clue how women actually worked emotionally, and it was a recipe for disaster in my love life. Anytime I would be in an argument, I would present what I thought were logical facts, whether it was my long-term girlfriend when I was younger, my ex-fiance, or anybody I was dating short-term. These conversations would always go the same. Logic would be completely ignored on their end, and they would get increasingly upset and frustrated with me, which would make me increasingly frustrated and mad because I couldn't understand why they would ignore simple logic and things that make sense. So it would be the same fights. And finally, after over a decade and the last straw being my ex-fiance leaving me, I had to come to the realization that I fundamentally did not understand women, and I was clearly doing many things wrong. It wasn't a coincidence that I kept ending up with these results. The reason logic doesn't work is because your wife isn't in her logical brain during conflict. When emotions are high, the body releases cortisol and adrenaline, and her nervous system shifts into protection mode. It's not that she doesn't necessarily understand the logical points and reasoning that you're saying. It's that her brain is literally prioritizing survival over giving a crap if what you're saying makes complete perfect sense. So every time you bring up facts, you're talking to the part of her that's not even active right now. And before you start to think that it makes it seem like it's impossible to have a good marriage with your wife because this is such a huge difference in the way we are, you need to know that men actually do this as well. It just looks slightly different. When you're giving your unbelievably accurate facts and the more she isn't listening and the more you get frustrated, you also start to emotionally flood. You just show it a little bit differently. You might go quiet, you might get sarcastic, or you might double down on the logic, but this time you present it in an even more loud or angry fashion to regain control and force her to see your points. And this is the massive disconnect. Two flooded nervous systems trying to argue facts. This is how everything just escalates into a big fight all the time because it's not communication at this point. It's just two defense systems colliding with each other. So if this is happening to you in your relationship, where do we go from here? Well, I firmly believe that the only choice you have in order to make your relationship thrive is for you to lead the emotional climate. That doesn't mean you suppress your feelings because you don't want to upset her, but it does mean you have to stay grounded so that she can follow your lead in that regard. Leadership in moments of tension is not about who is right, it's about who is regulated. As soon as you get angry and tension mounts because your logical points are being ignored by her, your power and ability to lead your wife and have her respect completely disappears. When you shift from trying to prove something to trying to create safety, the entire tone of the conversation changes. You stop speaking to her mind because you understand her nervous system, so you start speaking to it instead. So what does that really look like? Here's an example. Instead of saying, hey, that's not what happened, you're exaggerating, you could say, I get that it felt that way for you, and I don't see it the same way, but I understand why that would hurt you. That's validating her feelings without disintegrating your own logical points. It keeps you authentic, but it also softens her defenses. It's only when you start to create this emotional safety that she will start to hear your logical points again. Your calmness doesn't just de-escalate her emotions. What it helps to do is really reestablish polarity in your relationship dynamic, which is incredibly important for attraction and respect. In a fight, polarity tends to disappear because both people move into frustrating modes of control and logic and dominance, or just two people of defense. Like I mentioned earlier, you have the two defense systems just colliding against each other. But when you stay grounded and actually show up as a calm man, that's the signal that is allowing the relationship to be safe. When she's upset, you're not matching her chaos to go down the road of escalation. And that is the difference between a man who wins arguments but loses the overall war, and a man who leads her to a safe emotional state and wins her trust back and the overall relationship. Here's the paradox. You think she wants you to understand her point in these situations. That's why you so feverishly argue and provide your logic from your point of view. But what she really wants is to feel that you can handle her emotions and that you validate her without counterattacking. That is emotional leadership. Many men stuck in marriage conflicts are caught in what I call the FPF loop, the fix, prove, fight loop. She gets emotional, you feel attacked, you explain or defend logically, she then feels dismissed and gets more emotional, you shut down or double down in annoyance and frustration, and then you push harder with the facts like I used to do endlessly. It was like my kryptonite. And the cycle repeats, and intimacy will die one argument at a time. Breaking that loop doesn't come from better arguments or listening better, as some advice will tell you, because you can listen more attentively, which, yes, ultimately when you communicate, you should be listening. But when it's your turn to respond and all you do is again push logic and facts while invalidating the emotions she just presented to you, you're going to end up with your wife getting the same disconnected feeling. But maybe there wasn't the yelling or cutting her off or loud voices because you listened better. But at the end of the day, you're getting the same result because you're trying to communicate your logic. You're not understanding her emotions and validating them. So no, breaking the FPF loop comes from breaking the pattern inside you. You have to realize that you cannot control her emotional reactions, but you can control whether you lead the moment or react to it yourself, which is ultimately going to compound the problem, and it's not leadership at all. A counterintuitive aspect of healthy relationships that I would say honestly 90+% of men do not understand, and I was in that bucket for a very long time, is that when a woman feels safe, she's naturally going to reconnect with you. You don't have to try harder and do all these over-the-top things to convince her to reconnect. It becomes a natural response to your leadership and creating a safe environment for those emotions. She stops trying to win and she starts wanting to understand you more because you've contained her emotions, you've validated them, and now you're able to convey your logical points because she's going to respect you more for creating that containment, and she's going to listen to you more because you did that first. So next time a conversation is happening and it's looking like it can head the way of a same typical fight, instead of defending yourself, do this. Don't fire back. Take a moment to remind yourself this is not an attack. This is a pain that is trying to be understood. And then, instead of thinking of other ways to present your logical points so she understands, think to yourself, what is she actually needing to feel safe right now? Usually it's reassurance that you care and validating those feelings. Even if you disagree about the meat and potatoes of those conversations, you have to validate at least her feelings of them. And when you take that time to first create that safety and validation for her, then you can respond with your logical points, not react, you respond, and she will probably be very open to it because you created that safe space. You can say something like, I get this is frustrating, but I care about fixing it a lot. I don't want to fight. That one phrase, I care about fixing it, I don't want to fight, disarms her. It turns what could be another argument leading to a huge fight into a partnership moment. And that's how marriages start to heal, not through perfection, not through a nice Cartier bracelet, but through you willing to show up and lead calmly in this chaos. I do want to make one thing clear. You're not responsible for your wife's emotions, but you are responsible for the emotional environment you help create. When you bring a calm, masculine tone into moments of tension, you're telling her nervous system it's safe to come down and that you are not the enemy. And when that becomes your consistent pattern over and over again, conflict stops feeling like a threat because you are building more safety and connection. that's when her guard drops and the space for attraction to rebuild and her to reconnect stronger with you opens again. If you're in a place right now where every conversation feels like it could turn into or does turn into another argument and big fight, I want you to know it's not a hopeless situation. I've worked with men who were sleeping in separate bedrooms, feeling invisible, believing the damage was permanent and they would never get out of this cycle. And when they learned to lead differently, when they stopped trying to win, stopped trying to argue with logic, and they started to create safety, their marriages didn't just survive, they were elevated to places untouched previously. These men started to approach life in a completely different way, and the level of respect that their wives had for them naturally returned. And yes, your marriage can absolutely heal, but it's not going to happen through logic. It happens through understanding how to show up as the leader after years of complacency and learning all the counterintuitive aspects of how a woman's nervous system truly operates. If this is hitting close to home, if you're tired of trying to talk things through logically and just getting into the same fights over and over again, where it just feels like your wife is completely disconnected from you, you don't have to fight this alone. I walk men through this exact transformation inside my free masterclass where I'll show you the 5-step process that's saving marriages every week in my relationship rebuild program. You'll learn how to rebuild respect, her trust, and her emotional attraction and completely transform your life without having to beg her to work with you or tell her what she needs. You can do this transformation through your own commitment to change. The link for that free masterclass is in the description below. Watch it today. Also, if you like this video and it's helped you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next episode.